What's going on, guys? Nelside Gaming here once again with another deck tech video, and today we are taking a look at my Kwain deck. Kwain is a 1/3 legendary creature rabbit wizard for Azorius, 1 white, 1 blue. It can tap, and each player may draw a card, then each player who drew a card this way gains 1 life. This deck can be built multiple ways: group hug, control. What we want to do is we want to make our opponents think we're not a threat, and then be a threat. So in this case, what you see is not what you get. Kwain is great. It can tap. Each player may draw a card in each life. Then each player who drew a card this way gains a life. Ramp package. We got a Soul Ring. We got a Talisman of Progress. An Azorius Signet. And a Thought Vessel. Why do we have a Thought Vessel in here? Oh, because we're going to be drawing a lot of cards, guys. We need that maximum hand size, and it's printed on multiple cards. Here we got some enchantments, some stacks pieces. I didn't go too crazy. I didn't add no Dranith. I didn't add Linvala or any of that stuff. I just wanted to make sure that, sure, I'm giving my opponents a lot of cards, but they're going to be limited as to how many cards they can play. And if they don't have maximum hand size, they're going to be discarding a lot. So Arcane Laboratory is an enchantment for 2 and a blue that says each player cannot play more than 1 spell each turn. And Rule of Law is the same card printed in white. So this is the most hated card. People just see that and they're like, oh man. But because I'm drawing them cards, they're like, oh, we'll find an answer. All right, they can find an answer, but I'll show you here soon that it's not going to matter. Ghostly Prison, so they can't attack us. Unless they pay 2. Of course, an enchantment for 2 and a white, and that's what it does. But, yeah, Ghostly Prison is good in this deck because we have, like, 5 creatures total in the deck. I'm not sure how many, but it's around that number. And we don't want people attacking us. We want to be behind a barrier. Ristic Study, of course, an enchantment for 2 and a blue. Whenever an opponent plays a spell, you may draw a card unless that player pays 1. Will you pay the 1? Smothering Tithe. So this card is an MVP in this deck. I mean, it's a really good card in any deck, but in this deck in particular, we're gonna be making our opponents. Our commander's ability is a May ability, but I guarantee you, most of the time they will take you up on it. There's also other ways for us to force them to draw cards, and if they don't pay the 2 for each one of those cards, we'll be making some treasures, which will be used very efficiently. Teferi's Ageless Insight is an enchantment for 2 blue. If you would draw a card except the first one you draw in each of your draw steps, draw 2 cards instead. So we're doubling up our draw. Leyline of Anticipation is an enchantment for 2 blue, and if you start the game with it in your hand, you can start the game with it on the battlefield, and you may cast spells as though they had flash. We used to have Vidalcan Ori in here as well, but it seemed a little overkill. A lot of the times we want to leave our mana open to be menacing. So this is really good. We want to be defensive. We want to leave our options open. Nobody plays anything. All right, now we'll cast our permanents at the end of your end step. But if you see us with a lot of mana open, yeah, you should be a little worried. Mind Over Matter is actually the best card in the deck, in my opinion. It's an enchantment for 2 blue. You can choose and discard a card, tap or untap target artifact, creature, or land. So you could potentially empty out your deck with this in response to like a Thassa's Oracle, or like I like to use it most of the time, untapping and tapping my commander to gain a ton of life, draw a bunch of cards. My opponents are going to take me up on that a lot. If I have a Smothering Tithe, this is a combo with Book of Folios and Smothering Tithe. So, yeah, it's just the best card in the deck, I think. You can untap or tap, so you can tap your opponent's stuff. You can do whatever you need. It's a really good toolbox. Omniscience is an enchantment for 7 blue. It's not going to be a problem. We're going to get that. You may cast spells from your hand without paying your mana cost, their mana cost. So you're just going to be playing everything for free. You're going to have a lot of cards in your hand. That is a very good target for a card coming up here pretty soon. Prosperity, we got some X draw spells. Prosperity is X in a blue sorcery. Each player draws X cards. Once again, Smothering Tithe, pretty good. Finale of Revelation is another X draw spell. It's a sorcery for X blue. You draw X cards. If X is 10 or more, instead shuffle your graveyard into your library, draw X cards, untap up to 5 lands, and you have no maximum hand size for the rest of the game. Exile Finale of Revelation. Just a good way to draw a ton of cards and get that no maximum hand size. Windfall is amazing in this deck as well, with Smothering Tithe out, and just overall, it is a sorcery for 2 blue. Each player discards their hand, then draws cards equal to the greatest number of cards the player discarded this way. Of course, if our players have a lot of cards in hand, we're going to be drawing a lot of cards with this. Drown in Dreams, I love this card. It's an instant for X2 in blue. You choose one. If you control your commander, you may choose both. Target player draws X cards. Once again, target player, we like that. And target player mills twice X cards. So most of the time, I'm going to choose myself unless a Smothering Tithe is out and I really need the mana more than giving my opponents value. But I like the second one. You can mill them. Let's say you put, you can, if you have infinite mana somehow, or 100 treasures, you can mill somebody out easy. Actually, all you need is 50. Oh no, you need 53 treasures to mill somebody out at the start of the game, let alone later on. We have a double-faced land here, Sea-Gated Restoration. It is a sorcery for 4 blue that is also a land that comes in on top if you pay 3 life. That gives you blue. You can draw cards equal to the number of cards in your hand plus 1. You have no maximum hand size for the rest of the game. Library of Lang. You have no maximum hand size. Whenever a spell or effect forces you to discard a card, you may instead discard that card to the top of your library. So this is a combo with your boy, Mind Over Matter. Folio of Fancies is a combo piece with Mind Over Matter. It is an artifact for 1 and a blue. Players have no maximum hand size, so you got to be careful with that. But the second one is pretty good. XX and tap. Each player draws X cards, so you're forcing them to draw. You pay 2 blue and tap it. Each opponent puts a number of cards equal to the number of cards in the hand from the top of the library into the graveyard. So once again, you can literally win. You can literally just pay whatever amount, a very high amount on this. Have them draw, let's say, 40 cards, right? And then you untap it, and you pay 3, tap it, and then they mill 40 cards, or whatever the amount is, and you mill them out. It's pretty good. And of course, they can have counter spells, they can have removal, but trust me, if we have cards in our hands, we're going to have responses to that. Swift Foot Boots. The reason we have this instead of Lightning Greaves is because we want to target our opponent. We want to target our commander. So we don't really want to give them Shroud. Quick creature has Hexproof and Haste, the quick one. So Isochron Scepter and Dramatic Reversal is an infinite mana combo. Isochron Scepter is an artifact for 2 mana that says Imprint. When it enters the battlefield, you may exile an instant card with converted mana cost 2 or less from your hand. It could be this, or it could be any counter spell, whatever you want. You can pay 2 and tap it, and you may copy the exiled card. And if you do, you may cast the copy without paying its mana cost. Now, with Dramatic Reversal, which is an instant for 1 and a blue, you can untap all non-land permanents you control, which includes Isochron Scepter in your lands. You can tap 2 to repeat the process, netting infinite mana. And then, yeah, so you can either do that, or you can do the counter spell stuff, but preferably this. Now, we have some pieces that people really don't like. Teferi Time Raveler is a planeswalker with 4 loyalty counters. He's Teferi, and he costs a colorless white and a blue. He has a static ability which each opponent can cast spells only anytime they can cast a sorcery. You can +1 until end of turn. You may cast sorcery spells as though they had flash, which I like that very much. And then the -3, return up to 1 target artifact, creature, or enchantment to its owner's hand, draw a card. I have done this bottom one to get Rule of Law and Laboratory. The other enchantment that only allows people to play 1 spell per turn. And then I continue playing my spells. So, but the most important one is a static ability. Same here with Narset, Porter of Veils, a Planeswalker with 5 loyalty counters that cost 1 blue. Each opponent can't draw more than 1 card each turn. So when you're tapping to make them draw, they're not drawing, which is a good thing. And then a -2, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a non-creature, non-land card from among them and put them into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. All right, Subtlety. This is a card a friend of mine got me. It is a creature, elemental incarnation, 3/3 for 2 blue, has flash and flying. And when it enters the battlefield, choose up to 1 target creature spell or planeswalker spell. Its owner puts it on the top or bottom of their library. Evoke. Exile a blue card from your hand. You can cast this card without paying its mana cost. So it's technically a free spell that can bounce something to the top of the library, which is pretty cool. I mean, we're having them draw again, but if it's something we absolutely need gone at that moment, it really works, and it's free. Consecrated Sphinx is a 4/6 Sphinx for 4 blue. Flying, whenever an opponent draws a card, you may draw 2 cards. Yes, we will be doing that. Jin-Gitaxi's Core Augur is a 5/4 Praetor for 8 blue. With flash, at the beginning of your end step, draw 7 cards. Each opponent's maximum hand size is reduced by 7. This is a removal magnet. We want them to focus on this and not other pieces. It's a great card. It barely stays on the battlefield for long. It will make you a threat, but if you have the proper stacks pieces to to kind of hassle them and you have some counters in hand, you're going to be fine. Path to Exile is a removal that can exile target creatures. Controller may search his or her library for a basic land card. Put it onto the battlefield tapped. So not the best removal, but we'll have it in there because we're in white. Swords to Plowshares, and then an instant for white. Exile target creatures control against life equal to its power. The better version of that. Pongify is a blue removal for 1 blue. Destroy target creature, can be regenerated. Create a 3/3 green a creature token. That person does. Sometimes I use this to destroy a card that I'll show you coming up. Rapid Hybridization is another instant removal spell for a blue. It does the same thing, but that person gets a green frog lizard instead of an ape. Reality Shift is another instant removal for 1 and a blue. Exile target creature's controller manifests the top card of his or her library. That player puts the top card of his or her library onto the battlefield face down as a 2/2 creature. If it's a creature card, it can be turned face up anytime for its mana cost. So, not really that good, but it exiles a creature, so that's pretty good. A lot of people be giving themselves indestructible nowadays. Narset's Reversal is an instant for blue. Copy target instant or sorcery, then return it to its owner's hand. You may choose new targets for the copy. So we can copy all kinds of stuff. We can copy counters to counter the counter countering them. Or we can, so we can do that, or we can just copy like a draw spell or whatever it may be, or tutor something. Heliod's Intervention is an instant for X white. You can choose 1, destroy X target artifacts and or enchantments, or target player gains twice X life. We're going to be focusing on the first one with this one. Crib Swap is another tribal instant for 2 and a white. It is a removal spell, that's what I meant. As Changeling, and not that it matters in this particular build, but exile target creatures. Controller creates a 1/1 colorless shapeshifter creature token with Changeling. Teferi's Protection is a instant for 2 and a white that pretty much takes you out of the game for a turn. Until your next turn, life total can't change, and you have protection from everything. All permanents you control phase out, and you exile Teferi's Protection. So we really want to protect our stuff because they'll be coming for us after the mid-game. Generous Gift is another permanent removal. It's an instant for 2 and a white. Destroy target permanent. Its controller creates a 3/3 green elephant creature token. Submerge is an instant bounce spell that could potentially be free. It costs 4 and a blue, but most of the time it will be free. If an opponent controls a forest and you control an island, which you will, you may play Submerge without paying its mana cost. Put target creature on top of its owner's library. This can destroy tokens, and this can just bounce people's stuff to the top of the library. Vanquish the Horde is a great sorcery board wipe for 6 white, but it will cost 1 less for each creature on the battlefield. Destroys all creatures. Supreme Verdict is a sorcery for 1 white, white, blue. Cannot be countered. Destroy all creatures. Cyclonic Rift is an instant for 1 and a blue. Return target online permanent you don't control to its owner's hand. If you've overloaded, which is what you're probably going to do, you may change all instances to target with each. So it pretty much bounces all of your opponent's non-land permanents to their hands. Farewell is a sorcery board wipe for 4 white, white. You can choose 1 or more. You can exile all artifacts, all creatures, all enchantments, and all graveyards. Here we got some tutors. Enlightened Tutor lets you search up an artifact or enchantment, put it on top of your library, shuffle your library, put it on top of your library for just 1 white mana. We can pretty much get Mind Over Matter or Book of Folios if we already have the other, any of the pieces that we might need to advance us. Mystical Tutor is the same thing, but instead you can look for an instant or sorcery card and do the same thing for 1 blue. Long-term plans, instant tutor for 2 and a blue. Search your library for a card, shuffle your library, then put that card 3rd from the top. It's not going to matter here. We're going to put it 3rd from the top and then draw right into it whenever we want. Idyllic Tutor is a sorcery for 2 and a white that lets you search your library for an enchantment card and put it in your hand and shuffle your library. Solve the Equation is another tutor sorcery for 2 and a blue. Search your library for instant sorcery card, put it into your hand. And then we have Academy Rector. So sometimes if people refuse, well, let's read what the card does first. It's a creature cleric. It's a 1/2 creature cleric for 3 and a white. When it is put into the graveyard from play, you remove it from the game. If you do, search your library for an enchantment card, put that card into play, then shuffle your library. So if we really need to, we'll use our removal on this so that we can get Omniscience or Mind Over Matter. And then we have some win cons. So Thassa's Oracle is considered a CEDH win con. With Tainted Pack, Demonic Consultation, I think is called. There's a lot. We did not add Leveler in this deck. We did not add Paradigm Shift in this deck. We did not add Laboratory Maniac in this deck. And we did not add the Planeswalker deck, the Planeswalker card that allows you to do the same thing. Thassa's Oracle is in here because we can win with Mind Over Matter. And also by organically drawing out our decks, which we can do fairly, I believe. So no 2-card combos. Well, technically you can count Mind Over Matter as a 2-card combo. Keep in mind, Mind Over Matter costs freaking 7. Is it 7 mana? I don't even know how much it costs, but it's not that easy to do. It's a win con. We need a win con, guys. This deck will make your games very slow. I will tell you why in a second. Let's get into Thassa's Oracle. She's a 1/3 Merfolk Wizard for blue. When she enters the battlefield, you look at the top X cards of your library, where X is your devotion to blue. Put up to 1 of them on top of your library and the rest of the bottom of your library in a random order. If X is greater than or equal to the number of cards in your library, you win the game. So in response to the ETB of Thassa's Oracle, we will draw out our entire deck and win the game. By the time it resolves, we have no cards in hand. We have, let's say, 1 card. We look at it, put it back. It's going to be less than our devotion to blue. We win. Another win con could be Psychosis Crawler. It's a little slower. Its power and toughness are equal to the number of cards in your hand. Whenever you draw a card, each opponent loses 1 life. So we'll drain out our opponents by drawing. Another win con is Touchdown. It's a sorcery. Well, it's Approach of the Second Sun. It's a sorcery for 6 and a white. If this spell was cast from your hand and you've cast another spell named Touchdown this game, you win the game. Otherwise, put Touchdown into its owner's library 7th from the top and you gain 7 life. Yeah, we put this on top, then we draw right into it really quickly. And with Omniscience, it's, yeah. So let's get into our counter spells, which is a lot. There's going to be some lands in here too, but we got some free counter spells. We got all kinds of counter spells. We want to protect our board, and we want to stop our opponents from winning and doing things to mess with our board. I usually use them for when people want to, whatever benefits me. Like if somebody's playing a board wipe and it benefits me, I'll let it slide. If somebody, let's get into it. You'll see what I mean. I usually hold them up to protect my win cons, but yeah, there's a lot of freaking counter spells in here. There's Force of Will, which is a free. Well, if you can pay the 5, but nobody ever does. You may pay 1 life and remove a blue card from your hand from the game instead of paying Force of Will's casting cost, and then you counter target spell for free. Pact of Negation costs 0. You can counter target spell, but at the beginning of your next upkeep, you got to pay 3 blue. If you don't, you lose. Force of Negation, very similar to Force of Will. It is a counter spell for 1 blue, but if it's not your turn, you may exile a blue card from your hand rather than pay this mana cost, and you can target non-creature spell. And if it is countered, it is exiled instead. Fierce Guardianship, if you control your commander, you may cast this spell without paying its mana cost. You can counter target spell. Swan Song, you can counter target enchantment, instant or sorcery spell, and they get a 2/2 blue bird for a blue. On Offer You Can't Refuse is another counter spell for 1 blue, counter target non-creature spells. Controller creates 2 treasure tokens. Mana Drain is an instant for blue, counter target spell at the beginning of your next main phase. Add an amount of colorless mana equal to that spell's converted mana cost. Dovin's Veto is an instant for white-blue. The spell can't be countered. Counter target non-creature spell. Negate for 1 and a blue, counter target non-creature spell. Counter spell, blue, counter target spell. Render Silent, white-blue instant, counter target spells. Controller can't cast spells this turn. Archmage's Charm, blue, choose 1, counter target spell. Target player draws 2 cards. Gain control of target non-land permanent. Converted mana cost 1 or less. Arcane Denial, 1 and a blue, counter target spell. The spell's caster may draw up to 2 cards at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep. Draw a card at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep. Delay is 1 and a blue for a counter spell that says counter target spell. If the spell is countered this way, exile 3-time counters on it instead of putting it into its owner's graveyard. If it doesn't have suspend, gain suspend. Reroll is Rewind. It's a counter spell that's technically free, but not really. It's a 2 blue for counter target spell. Untap up to 4 lands. Misdirection is technically free as well. It is, but it is not a counter spell. It is like a deflecting swap kind of. It's a 3 blue, and it says you may remove a blue card in your hand from the game instead of paying its mana cost, and then target spell with a single target targets another target instead. So technically, it is a counter spell because you can have somebody else's counter spell target this spell, countering it, and fizzle, and it like it's his counter or her counter will still counter something, but it's not going to counter its initial target. So technically, it could be used as a counter spell. So we're done with counter spells. We're going to move to lands. We got a Command Tower, a Flooded Strand, a Hallowed Fountain, an Adarkar Waste, Mystic Gate, Nimbus Maze, Glacial Fortress, Sea of Clouds, Prairie Stream, Deserted Beach. We got a Ganjo Seat of the Empire, Otawara Soaring City, Minamo School at Water's Edge to untap our commander, Henchgate Pathway, which gives you 2 different sides, Migokoro Center of the Sea can force players to draw a card, Hall of Helios Generosity, that's how we get Mind Over Matter and all that back to our top of the library. Reliquary Tower gives us no maximum hand size. And then we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 islands and 3 plains. That is my Kwain deck. A deck that not a lot of people like to play against. But when it's not very high power. I'll give it a 7. I know people give it a 7. I use like this calculator online that kind of gives you an estimate because it doesn't have like that many combos or anything. It's just an annoying deck. It's a 7 power wise. I think I've only won 1 game with this. Usually I make the games real slow and then somebody ends up killing me. It is a really good deck though. So thank you guys for watching. I really enjoy playing this deck. It can do some crazy things. People are like, oh my god, I'm drawing so many cards. It tends to speed up other people's decks. Like they get to do everything they want to do unless I'm countering it, of course. It's just like you feel so powerful playing it because you're controlling so much. Like it's so efficient in controlling. It's pretty good. It's a pretty good deck, really. I definitely recommend you check out that Moxfield link in the description. Give it a test. But yeah, guys, thank you guys for watching so much. Until next time, Nelson Gaming out.